Hi everyone, welcome to Traveling Misknits. My name is Pia and I am so happy that you're joining me here in Texas today for a quick look at my crochet and knitting from the past week. I have 2 finished objects and 2 new cast-ons because this is how we maintain the balance of the universe. I did finish my dog scarf just in time for winter. This year winter fell on a Tuesday here in Plano, Texas, and I finished the scarf Tuesday morning so that I could wear it when we went out to build a snowman and have all the snowy fun. And it was exactly as warm and luxurious and wonderful as I had imagined. I love this thing. I know I've shown it before. Let me show it again. The halo on the dog hair is amazing. A friend of mine, a dear friend, is a spinner, and she spun up the dog yarn here, the dog hair yarn. She spun up 3 skeins, a sandy beige, a light gray, and a brown. Yeah, there you go. You see these 2 are different, the brown and the gray. I did not use the sandy beige. I have other plans for that, but I did stripe the 2 darker colors together with some drops air, which is this kind of fluffy blow yarn with a lot of alpaca in it. And I really think these yarns work together well. They're equally light and airy, fluffy, and very, very warm. So I just cast on 60 stitches. I knit garter stripes. On every row, I would slip the last 2 stitches with the yarn held in front just to give it a nice edge here to the sides. And that's basically it. I did these stripy sections, just very, very low contrast, very subdued in all of the colors. I didn't make it too long because what I wanted, and I'm going to try to get up here, I wanted a scarf that I could just wear around my neck without it reaching down to my knees. I also wanted it long enough that I could double it and loop it around my neck when it's cold. And I will say, this is just the perfect length for this. I did try it on as I went, and yeah, I still have some yarn left. I didn't use up all of the yarn, but I also have plans for that. I'm going to use it together with the sandy beige skein that I didn't even break into. But for now, I have a wonderfully soft and fluffy and warm scarf that I can use. Probably not here. I think winter is over again. As I said, it did fall on a Tuesday this year, but I can use it when I get back to Denmark. And also, there's going to come a winter next year as well. I also picked up and finished an old whip. My Sienna Shrug that I started making last fall. And I'm going to hold it back here where the color representation is. That's kind of correct. It will blow out when I hold it closer, but I want you to see the stripes on it. And I also want to show you the rose pattern, which I love this rose stitch. It is a variation of a brioche stitch, which means that you need to not make any mistakes. Or, of course, it's possible to go back in these brioche patterns, but it's fiddly. This is very, very simple to work. It's as simple as working a 1x1 ribbing, but you need to stay with your stitches at all times, or use some lifelines. When I first started working on this design, I actually used lifelines. I would thread a thin thread through the holes of my interchangeable needles. Then I would knit around, and I would have this thread going through all of the stitches from this round, meaning that if I then knit a couple of centimeters, made a mistake, then I could drop all of my stitches and just frog back until I met the thread. Then I could pick up the stitches again and start over. So a lifeline is good if you're just a little bit unsure. And well, now that I have worked so many shrugs in this stitch, I feel confident that I can just go ahead and knit. I love the sienna shrug because it is, to me, the perfect combination between being super casual and easy to wear, but still just a little bit form-fitting. This actually means that when you put it on, it will help you get this really casual, I just threw this over my head look without having to try too hard. The yarns are all yarns that I dyed this summer. I went crazy in the dye pots. I had a lot of DK weight merino that I dyed up in all kinds of colors. For this version, I chose all the moody, soft, beautiful tones. So there's some red, some gray, some green, and then the main attraction of this show is the blue, which is kind of surprising because I'm not a blue person. But for this rug, I definitely am. I have been wearing it already, and yeah, I'm loving the blue. I did do Italian cast on and bind off. The way you work this shrug is you start by working this shorter. Can you see the neckline is kind of double? So you start up here by casting on with a tubular or Italian cast on. Then you work all the way down through the body of the shrug. You bind off here. And the reason why I wanted to do Italian cast on and bind off is because you really want this section to be very, very stretchy. Then you pick up stitches on the inside of your first ribbing, and you work a longer ribbing, which you then also do a sewn bind off on. And I will say, I don't usually use the sewn bind off. I don't think that it necessarily adds a lot to a pattern, but in this case, where it's practical to have it on one of the edges, of course, I want everything to look the same, and there is something almost meditative to the sewn bind off, where you just sit there and you work your stitches together, 2 and 2, and yeah, I don't mind doing it. It's just that I don't see any reason aesthetically to use it. So I wouldn't use it on a sweater like the one I'm wearing today. I wouldn't see a reason for that. I actually like the look of a regular bind off. I like the little line that kind of ends your sweater. What I am wearing today, by the way, is my Aurora sweater. This is a Sunday, which means that it is a yoga pants, knit socks, and cozy sweater day. And I have over here my Aurora sweater knit up in this super soft and squishy yarn. It is from less traveled yarn, and I do not remember the colorway. It was, I think, some kind of special edition. It's a yarn that I got up at the McKinney Knittery a couple of years ago. I knit this sweater that I am loving it. I really love the Aurora. It is very simple, just a simple raglan, relatively deep sleeve, but not deeper than you can easily wear a jacket over it. And then you have these ribbed sections on the inside of the sleeves and running down the sides of the body. And you have a fun little body shaping. I think you can kind of tell how the body is pulled to the front and slightly upwards. You have some short rows just to make up a very, very cozy sweater. I also worked on another thing, but you can't call this a finished object. You even can't call it a whip. This is John's growing blanket. So the last time I was here, I was working up. I thought it was going to be a blanket for myself to put on my bed here with some different size of granny squares in the middle, then some granny stripes, and then I'm later in the process going to add another round of granny squares and finish it off in a way that I haven't figured out yet. But as I was working on it, little John, my grandson over here, he was looking at it and going, wow, Grandma, that is so pretty. This is, what is it he says? It's so cute. It's awesome and great. Is it for me? I mean, how can there be more than one answer to this? Of course, it was for him from that second. So I added this little section here where it says, to the moon and morning, because that's what we tell each other. I love you to the moon and morning. In the beginning, I would just say, as you do, I love you to the moon and back. And he'd be like, no, Grandma, to the moon and morning, because you also love me when it's the morning. So I put it in the blanket. I added some Texas stars. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to work on this until I think it's finished. But he wanted to use it right away. He felt that it was big enough for him. It's even bigger than me, as he said. So we decided to let this be his growing blanket so that every time he grows, I will add in just a little bit more on the blanket. I added in just a couple of rounds this time. And at some point, as I said, when I feel like this section is big enough, I'm going to add a round of just some small granny squares, and then I will continue with the striping probably on the other side of that. But this is all something to come as he grows, because they do. And I am really loving getting a chance to come back to this project, which is, it's so meaningful to me, making a blanket for my grandson. I also made one for my oldest grandchild, Isabella. John is second oldest. So now I am starting to think about what blankets I should make for the other three, because of course everyone needs a blanket from their grandma. I have been crocheting on my Better World dress, the dress that I want to make as a summer top. And it's been going. It's been going, it's been growing. This color is so difficult to show on camera. I think this is a relatively good representation. It does look, it's a little bit different, but anyway, when I hold it here, you can see all the wonderful detail on the dress slash top. You can see that I separated for the sleeves here. It is when you separate for the sleeves that you determine the size of your dress, or as it were, top. You cast on or you chain the same number of stitches for all sizes when you get to the sleeve separation. If you want a larger body, you're going to have somewhat smaller sleeve, vice versa. If you want a smaller body, you're going to have a more full sleeve. I did chain 10 stitches less than the pattern says, so that I am working a 16 repeat, where in the pattern it's a 17 repeat, but there's plenty of space in it, and that's what I knew there would be because I made this as a dress last summer. The repeat that I took out, I have taken it out of the back so that the back has fewer stitches than the front, and it looks really nice when I try it on. This thing is a yarn guzzler. I don't know that that's a word, but it eats up yarn. And I knew that. I just forgot. But I knew that from making the black version, that I had to go back and order yarn again and again, more and more yarn. And I am now down to 4 balls of yarn, which is not going to be enough to finish off the top. So I have put in an order for some more yarn. It's waiting for me, hopefully, when I come to Denmark. So I'm going to crochet up the 4 balls that I have, and then I can finish it up when I get back. And I think I said last week that I was unsure on where and how I got this yarn. I must have bought it online, because when I started to search for it, I found it in one of the really big online stores in Denmark. It's called Rito. I found it there. It's called Rio, and it's from a Dutch company called Lamy. And it is just this very simple fingering weight cotton. It is mercerized. You know what I mean. It has this treatment that makes it just a little bit shiny, not a lot, but just a little bit shiny. I chose a mercerized cotton because it doesn't grow the way that a regular cotton does. If I were to make this in a regular cotton, it would grow like a beast once it was just close to water. And when I made the first version, I did not know that about mercerized cotton, that it didn't grow. So as I was getting closer to the end, I was like, how much is this going to grow? And I was like pulling on it and trying it on. Finally, I went ahead and wet blocked it, and it didn't grow. And I was like, why didn't it grow? What did I do wrong here? Turns out I didn't do anything wrong. I lucked out in choosing a mercerized cotton because that holds its shape much better than a regular cotton does. Just a little tip if you want to make the dress. If you're using a regular cotton, it's probably going to grow because it's a lot of fabric. If you use a mercerized, it's not going to grow. It's going to keep its shape. I've been wearing the dress quite a lot, and I've even had it hanging in my closet, and it hasn't grown one bit. So, yeah, I am just going around and around. I was playing, sorry, I have flu. I was playing with the idea of ending the pattern here and going into the last sections of the dress, which is just this netty, really easy to work section, and then a border. But I decided against it. I love all these intricate patterns. They're so pretty and they're so fun to work. I feel so accomplished. Every time I finish a pattern section, I'm like, yay me, I made this. So I'm not going to cheat myself out of this sense of accomplishment. I'm going to continue. I'm going to try it on. And when it comes to about, I'd say like, this is the top of my hip bone. This is where I want it to hit me. But also I need to be mindful of the fact that it is worked as a circle. So it's just a little bit shorter on the sides. So I'll have to try it on to be sure that I am ending it at the correct place. The thing is, when you're crocheting, you can always just reattach your yarn and work some extra rounds. The pattern is amazing. It is outstanding. I mean, it's a beautiful product that you get, but the pattern is so well written. You have a written version, you have a charted version, which is what I am using. I will refer to the written version just to see how to start each round, or I were when I worked the pattern the first time. This time, I'm just going at it using the charts. And it is so easy to follow. Stitches are easy. There's nothing in here that's difficult. There are things that are fiddly, like when you have to work complete rounds with a back post stitch. So you have to go behind your knitting and work around the back post, not the back of the stitch, but going down around the stitch here. That's fiddly when you have to do that from behind. But on those rounds, I have simply just worked from the inside of my dress. I have just turned my crochet around and worked that round from the inside, which makes it so much easier. It is a free pattern. It's available on Ravelry, and I will, of course, link it in the description box below. I have also been working on my Stromboli by Caitlin Hunter. It's this beautiful all over lace t-shirt pattern. I have it on a relatively short needle, so you're not going to be able to really appreciate the lace, but it's beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. It does look like cables. It's not. It's faux cables, and it's just the lace that makes it look like cables. It is so pretty, and it is so much fun to knit because it is a very intuitive pattern. You don't have to sit with a chart or instructions. You can, when you have knitted through once, you will have it memorized. It is very, very simple. So I am enjoying knitting on this one. It is worked bottom up, which does not bother me. I'm used to knitting bottom up. I did that for many years until I learned knitting from the top down. And what I'll do is I'll use the schematics. I will then add the measurements to a garment that I own already just to check, is this going to hit me where I want it to hit me? And I am working this to pattern, no modifications at all. I don't know when I have ever done that, but for this one, I'm just following the pattern, and it is enjoyable. I really like working on it, and I am excited to get the finished tee. I think it's going to be absolutely beautiful. I have separated front and back. I am working on what is going to be the back. I originally thought that I would make the front first, But it turns out, and I don't know, yeah, it does kind of come through on camera. I did make a mistake. I was working the body in the round and I did not pay attention to my yarn. So I come up to the point where I have to separate and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm almost out of yarn in the first skein. I wish that I had discovered that just a couple of repeats before separating, because then I could have alternated two skeins, introducing a new skein gradually, rather than the more abrupt introduction. When you're knitting flat, you're going to have 2 rows from each skein. So that's going to be a lot more stripy than if you can just knit 1 round in each skein. I wouldn't have done helical knitting because helical knitting does not work well with lace. You are slipping stitches, which means that they are then not incorporated into the pattern. But I would have just alternated at the side seam like you would before you had ever heard about helical knitting, and that would have been good. I don't think it's terrible. It's not bad enough that I am gonna rip it back, but I can definitely see where the change happens. I can see some stripes, and yeah, it's gonna go on the back. Then I'm not gonna have to look at it, and I think it's gonna be fine. Also, this lace is gonna open up significantly in blocking, which will make it even less obvious. And when I start working on the front, I don't know if I want to deal with a bunch of loose ends. If I do, then I am going to knit just 1 row from one skein and 1 from the other. I did save just a little bit so that I can alternate that in. Plus, I am probably going to knit with both this skein and the 3rd skein that I have playing for this. So I am hoping to do a better job of introducing a new skein on the front. I think I am. I am for sure not going to rip back. No, it's not that big of a problem that I want to be ripping back. So I am just going to work ahead. I am going to finish the back, and then I'm going to be figuring out how to best introduce a new skein to the front section. This is on my bamboo, my Chaogu bamboo needles, because I think they work very, very well with a slippery yarn. This is a sock yarn. I think it's a 85-15, something like that. A regular superwash merino sock yarn, which means that it is kind of slippery. It's something that I dyed up myself years ago. I had 3 skeins just laying around, and I thought those would be perfect for the Stromboli, and I still feel that. Also, I think that a garment knit in a superwash fingering weight yarn, it's going to be quite airy. I think I will be able to wear this throughout even a relatively warm summer. That's the hope, at least. So those were the projects that I had last week and that I was determined to finish because I want to wear them both. We are going on a trip, and I need in the biggest possible sense, but I could use some summer garments. So I was determined to finish these 2. And then, of course, I went ahead and cast on 2 new projects. One of them, I will say, that was kind of not my fault. John had told his teacher that his grandma was an expert knitter and that grandma was going to teach him to knit. And she said, "Oh, John, maybe you could knit me a hat." So he came home and said, "I want to knit a hat for Ms Gilmore." I totally understand that she is the perfect teacher. Of course, I want to help him knit a hat. And again, I'm using help loosely, but he did work on the hat. Not terribly a lot, but he did work on the hat. What we decided on is a simple ribbed hat worked in the leftover drops air. I had almost 2 skeins left over from the dog scarf. And then we decided to just do the cast on and the first round in the dog hair just to get some extra floof. When you fold up the brim, it's gonna look absolutely wonderful with a lot of extra floof here. So yeah, we are just knitting around and around in a 1x1 ribbing. At some point, we're gonna do some rapid decreases, and probably we are gonna start the decreases soon-ish. And then we're going to add a pom-pom. We did order a big pack of pom-poms in all the different colors. And John is going to make a decision as to the color he prefers once they arrive. I am thinking that I'm going to add the pom-pom of his choosing and then a brown and black pom-pom that is in the kit, because I think that would look really pretty with the brown dog hair and the charcoal gray drops air. But yeah, I have 102 stitches. I am working on needle size 3.25 or 3.5. I think 3.5. I'm using my Chowgo shorties because I think they are absolutely perfect for hat knitting. When I use a cable that is slightly longer, then I can do magic loop at the top, even on a short cable. So yeah, I am getting close to the decreases for the top, and the thought is that we want to finish the hat on Tuesday because that's when our pom-poms are gonna arrive, and then he can gift it to Ms Gilmore on Wednesday. So of course that takes priority. I mean, I had to help him make a hat for his teacher. Of course I do. The last cast on of the week was just something practical. Because when I finished the scarf and the shrug, I didn't have any simple to-go knitting. I had the Stromboli, which is it's not a conversational knit. You have to pay attention. And I had the crochet dress, which is even more demanding. So I needed something simple. We hadn't had the hat incident yet. So I cast on a pair of socks because socks is what I wanted to make this year. We went to Michael's the other day and I got some Patton's Croy. I got this colorway that is called Gray Brown Mauve. I think it's going to be beautiful. I have this idea that it will be stripes in these gray, brown, and red, and then separated by thinner stripes of the light gray. I don't know yet. I will see that very soon. I also bought some gray Patton's Croy, and I decided to do cuffs, heels, and toes in the gray. So I worked these 20 rounds of 1x1 ribbing, and then I am going to start on the self-striping. I am going to knit until the skein is half used. I do have my small scale with me somewhere here. I have, it's not big. It's perfect for something like that. I can keep this in my knitting bag and just weigh the bowl from time to time. When it hits the halfway point, then I'm gonna work the toe in the gray, and I'm gonna add afterthought heels later. I am gonna weigh the skein before I start the bowl, before I start knitting, because the 50 grams that is on the bowl band is conditioned weight. That means that it is what this ball of yarn will weigh under a certain set of conditions. Especially humidity makes a lot of a difference. So if you go out and buy a 100-gram skein, you will see that sometimes it's 102 gram or even 104 grams. That is probably because the conditions that you're weighing the yarn in is different from the conditions, the controlled environment at the mill. So never trust the bowl band when it says 50 grams. It's 50 grams conditioned. So what you want to do is you want to weigh your bowl, and then you will be able to weigh it as you knit and determine when you're approximately halfway through. Just a little heads up, because I have actually heard people be confused about this. How come there's not 50 grams? How come there's more? But that's conditioned weight. And that was it for the crafty content this week. I have been knitting quite a lot. I knit in the evenings, I knit in the mornings. I'm not jet lagged anymore, but I do wake up relatively early, and I enjoy sitting in my bed, maybe listening to a book or watching some knitting podcasts, and just knit a little bit before the day begins. And with the Ms Gilmore hat, well, I am being kept to it. Are you knitting on the hat yet? Yes, I am. It has been a lot of fun knitting together with little John. He actually told me that he wanted to learn how to yarn, which I took to mean that he wanted to learn either to crochet or knit. So I chose crochet, and he did help me working some of the stitches on this blanket. I'm not gonna be teaching him in a here is how you do way. I just put him in my lap. I put his hands where they're supposed to be, and then I put mine on top, especially for the tensioning of the yarn. I think that is often the biggest problem, is the tensioning of the yarn. So we will be tensioning the yarn together, holding it together, and then we go like through the hole and get the yarn, and we have our little things that we say to remind ourselves how to create stitches, and that goes for both knitting and crochet. I was debating doing a stockinette stitch hat just so that he didn't have to fuss with purl stitches, but he does not work on it a lot. He just likes to be able to say, I was working on the hat. And a ribbed hat just, it fits so well when you're knitting for someone whose head size you honestly have no idea about. So I decided a ribbed hat it is, and he did not notice the difference between knit stitches and purl stitches, because I just made it one simple movement and then start again, knit, purl, and knit, purl. So yeah, there you go. He's not an expert knitter or crocheter yet, but it'll come. I am confident that it will come. I am gonna end things here. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you are enjoying what you're working on. If not, I hope that you're able to either put it aside completely, let it marinate until it presents itself again, or at least you're able to alternate between the thing that you're working on but not really enjoying and then something you absolutely love. I often do that when there's something that I want to finish because I really, really, really want to finish the object, but I'm not really enjoying the process anymore. Then I will force knit. It's fine. I will knit on it either for 20 or 30 minutes or this many repeats or this many rounds, and then I can work on something that is really enjoyable. Those are often the times where I will cast on right and left just to find something that is super, super fun. But yeah, I hope you are enjoying what you're working on. I hope to see you again next week. Until then, stay happy, stay safe, and keep knitting.